Don't you think it's time?
When we talk about a country, a nation, or a culture, we tend to use one thing to express feeling. Speaking of France, we first think of is wines and cheese. Speaking of Italy, we always think about is pizza and pasta. When we're talking about the United States, it should be burgers. And when it's come to the UK, my definition is tea.
We know the songs of all the wrongs, love that died, nobody tried, but here and now I know what's true.
This part of the culture, everybody likes a cup of tea.
Just everything stops for tea for British people.
Yeah, I love it. I love the scones and the cucumber sandwiches.
Very nice, lovely.
Yeah, British tea culture, it's a source of energy. When you're tired or feeling a bit low, then you just have a cup of tea.
It's the tea itself, I think. British is known for its tea, and so I think people have capitalised on turning that into an experience. So I think it's just one of those, it's become a bit of an institution now, I think, whereby, people will have tea and then they'll have cakes, they'll have scones with it, and yeah, I think it's just become a bit of an institution.
Traditional afternoon tea, as it's served nowadays, it comprises a pot of tea, English scones. These are a small cake-like scone. They're sort of halfway between a cake and bread, which you serve covered with jam and butter and cream. A lot of calories, of course, and probably not very healthy, but they taste very nice.
Well, what we do, how we serve it, is how we see it should be, which is a pot of tea, so whichever pot of tea you like. Selection of finger sandwiches, the classic cucumber with fresh mint and ham and egg mayonnaise and smoked salmon. Scones, freshly made scones with clotted cream and jam, yeah. And of course, a slice of cake or 2 slices of cake, however many you want.
People who have not tasted the British-style afternoon tea will be able to appreciate the delicacy of British-style afternoon tea and the aristocratic atmosphere immediately after waiter served 3 racks of snack on the table. Usually, the first layer is a collection of salt sandwiches with ham and cheese and so on. The second and third are placed with dessert. Usually, the second layer is placed with strawberry towers, which is a must for British afternoon tea. Shelf would also pick something else like puffs, cookies and chocolate for the second layer. The third tier is also changeable. The shelf would put suitable pastries as cakes and fruits. Tea consumption increased dramatically during the early 19th century, and it is around this time that Anna Russell, the 7th Duchess of Bedford, is said to have complained of having that sinking feeling during the late afternoon. At the time, it was usual for people to take only 2 main meals a day, breakfast and dinner, at around 8 o'clock in the evening. The solution for the Duchess was a pot of tea and a light snack, taken privately in her boudoir during the afternoon.
History of British afternoon tea, well, as far as I'm aware, it goes back several centuries when tea was introduced into Britain by traders from, I think it was probably the East India Company or some such, who had travelled to China. It is, of course, a Chinese tradition rather than a British tradition. When tea was first brought back to this country, it was extremely expensive, and therefore its use was confined mainly to the upper classes. This was a new strange item, and it was very much more ritualised and presumably followed the Chinese tradition of tea, that it was drunk in small cups.
Tea used to be drunk, before alcohol was legal, before there were alcohol bars. People used to go to bars to have tea and coffee, and that's what they used to first come together to socialise and go out. It was with tea and coffee.
There is no more quintessential British ritual than a ceremony and a serving of afternoon tea. The British are renowned for stopping everything at 4 o'clock each day to enjoy afternoon tea. Afternoon tea has been a part of British people's life, as well as it represents British people's attitude to life. Afternoon tea is the greatest monument to English tradition.
Well, I think British tea is really important for the English people here because it's they just love drinking it, and it's always in their daily life.
I think it's very much taking it easy, enjoying little luxuries, like cake, finger sandwiches, pot of tea, and all of the condiments that come with it. Pretty flowers on the table, lovely crockery. It's finery. It's luxury.
I think British people just love to drink tea, and it's become, even here, like when you talk about the Queen and things, you always, you think that drinking tea and having cake is a very posh thing to do.
Formal afternoon tea would require dressier type of clothes. For men, a suit is the proper attire. For women, a dress is definitely preferred. Well, a miniskirt will not be a wise choice. The idea is to strive for elegance. Only dresses over knee length will be acceptable. A dressy pantsuit is also acceptable. But dresses are always preferred if you want to look more feminine. Hats are not only a nice touch, they really are indispensable for having the real tea experience, and essential for garden teas. Some tea rooms have hats, which they keep for guests to wear.
Because I think it's only rich people could afford it before. So I think that's why they used to dress so highly, but now it's become such a common thing that tea is just in everyone's lives now. It's just a part of your daily routine to have a cup in the morning, at night, afternoon. So 3 cups is probably right, yeah, average person must have 3 cups.
It's a luxury, like I said before, and it's, you know, people want a piece of that, you know, it's why they go to nice restaurants to treat themselves, and I think it's just one of those things, you know, people want a bit of luxury, and this is just another way to have a piece of it.
I think that any ritual that ever surrounded the tradition has long since passed now. In modern society there are very little manners left in any form of eating, I'm afraid. It's usually on your lap in front of a television screen people eat, and although we have a lot of customers here that want the traditional, there is no formal ritual to the eating of it anymore. It was, I think, 200 years ago, or 100 years ago even, considered a much more sophisticated ritual. Now it's sort of piled on and stuffed in and drunk down, and that's about as far as the ritual goes. Unless, of course, you consider yourself upper class, in which case you might wish to make a more formal ritual of it.
Afternoon tea was initially developed as a private social event for ladies who climbed the echelons of society. It was only when Queen Victoria engaged in the afternoon tea ritual that it's become a formal occasion on a larger scale, known as tea receptions. Refreshment order should comply with taste of food, from light to heavy, from salty to sweet by the law. First, taste a little salty sandwich. Let the taste organs taste out the real taste of food. And then, sip a few mouthfuls of sweet smell of tea. Next, having coated jam or cream scone, so a little sweetness in the mouth, slowly disseminated. And finally, buy a sweet thick fruit tart, and it will lead you personally to enjoy afternoon tea in a culmination point.
Well, I mean, I just know how we do it, which is, you start with your finger sandwiches, and then you work your way up to your cake, and then you warm the scones up so they're fresh for you to eat nice and hot. Some people start with champagne, and some people go straight to the tea. But yeah, that's it. We're very relaxed.
It depends how you brew it. Usually, if you were doing it at home, you just put the tea bag in the water. But here, we put the tea bag in first and then put the hot water on top, because when the water is going inside it, I think it takes more of the flavour out of the tea bag, so it brews quicker, and I think you get more of the flavour. But the milk is depending on the person, really. So some people like it really milky and less tea because, I don't know, it's just the way they like it. Some people have it little. That's why we always give the milk with it, so they can choose for themselves.
Of course, no matter how rich the dessert is, and how delicate the tea pastries are, tea is still the absolute protagonist. Dedicated afternoon tea could be divided to Darjeelings and Earl Grey tea, Ceylon tea, and other types. Generally, It is directly brewing tea and then filtering out the tea leaves with tea strainer. When the hot water is pouring down, you can see throughout the apparent glass teapot the tea leaves in the water slowly opening its tip.
Yeah, so we specialise and we do over 80 teas, herbal teas, black teas, Darjeelings, oolongs, yellow tea, white tea, lots of herbals as well.
Yeah, well, I drink Earl Grey tea myself, although not exclusively, but I will have periods when I will drink nothing but Earl Grey tea. This was, I don't know whether you know, that Earl Grey was the inventor of this type of tea, and it is actually flavoured with bergamot oil. I'm not sure where this originated, where he got the idea from. It may have been from the Orient or somewhere where they put oil of bergamot in their tea, but it's a very popular tea now.
It's a symbol of British tea.
I think Earl Grey, yes. I think he introduced the idea probably from his travels somewhere, that he found the addition of bergamot in the tea. That is drunk without milk and generally without sugar.
Oh really? You should just drink the tea?
You just drink the tea, but it is flavoured with bergamot, which has a slight sweet edge to it. And I drink gallons of that every day.
British tea culture is rich and deep, and it carries friendship between people. Tea enhances communication and understanding between people. Often, some of the greatest ideas comes up from those teacups. British tea time etiquette followed British culture is reflect distinctive features of attention, being as polite lady and gentleman. The cultural characteristic has been demonstrated their attention to etiquette during the tea tasting. English people's personality is not very assertive, but more introverted and subtle, which is more similar to the characteristic of the tea. Drinking tea for the first time, it doesn't seem tasty, but the more you try, the more flavor comes after that. It's just like knowing British people. During the interaction, you will find them more and more interesting. Britain is a conservative nation. Culturally, this feature is also very clear. Now, Coca-Cola and other variety flavored drinks being popular. Tea in Britain still irreplaceable. It has been several hundred years of history, and people still love it. It symbolized a simple yet profound culture. It's not romantic like coffee or sparkling as cola, but it is what it is, rich and meaningful. A cup of English tea tastes reminiscent of British culture. Quaint street, resto architecture, plaid scarves, and steady Tower Bridge next to the Big Ben. If you ever travel to UK, don't forget to treat yourself a traditional afternoon tea.
One went out to the bus stop in Edinburgh. One went out in an English park. One went out in a nightclub when I was 15. little lights in my heart. One went out when I lied to my mother, said the cigarette